A bomb is driven through New York City in a blast-proof truck following a day of high tension.
There's a fire alarm here.
You might have heard it in the background. We're going to find out what the latest is
we'll be right back.
at CNN. We're going to be right back.
CNN anchors Poppy Harlow and Jim Sciutto were live on the air when the New York studio was evacuated. Hundreds fled the Time Warner Center in New York's Columbus Circle. The bomb squad rushed to the scene.
The fire alarm went off, and then in the middle of the show of my colleagues, which is always unusual, and our building security very smartly said, everyone needs to evacuate the building now.
Everybody's got to go this way or this way.
The bomb, which also contained a package of white powder, was placed in a special blast-proof cylinder. Streets and highways were cleared so it could be driven to a bomb squad demolition site in the Bronx.
It's good sometimes to find these devices intact because you really get to see the signature of the bomb maker on how they might have put these together. And believe me, these investigators will track down every wire or piece that's put together and to see if it could connect back to somebody.
The pipe bomb sent to CNN was addressed to former CIA Director John Brennan. And this is the package. Notice his name is misspelled. And the phony return address. Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
To underline, we do not think that that's real. We don't think Debbie Wasserman Schultz sent these packages.
A blizzard of at least 6 similar bombs were mailed across America, arriving at the Chappaqua, New York home of Hillary and Bill Clinton, and the home of Barack and Michelle Obama in Washington. Also, former Attorney General Eric Holder, controversial California Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and billionaire George Soros, all fierce critics of President Trump, who spoke out about the mail bombs today.
Acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
Let's bring in Sarah Sanders now from the White House, obviously press secretary. I'm sure, Sarah, you've been following all this from last night till today through the president's rally and beyond. What are your thoughts? It looks as though another critic of the president was targeted, Robert De Niro, and then Joe Biden, who might be running for president against the president, who's also been critical of him. What do you make of this?
Look, the president's been made aware of the latest developments that have taken place this morning. And as he said yesterday, and as he has continued to say from day one of taking office, that we condemn violence in all forms. And this is a despicable act and certainly something that should never take place in America.
Absolutely. 1 hour ago, the president tweeted this out. A very big part of the anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media that I refer to as fake news. It has gotten so bad and hateful that it is beyond description. Mainstream media must clean up its act fast. What is the president saying there?
Certainly the media has a role to play in this process. When 90% of the coverage about this president is negative, despite the historic successes, when the ideas are perpetuated and continued of negativity, that is not helpful for the American discourse. And certainly the president is calling on everyone to come together. And if you have a problem with one another, let's voice that, but let's do so peacefully, and let's do that at the ballot box.
Yeah, we saw what happened to Steve Scalise, where he was shot. We saw what happened to you and your family in the restaurant, and we have Maxine Waters that's calling for people to get into the face of folks in the administration that they don't agree with. Hillary Clinton was saying that we won't be civil until Democrats are in power. And I'm not saying it's just Democrats, because it's on both sides. But is this a good reminder to us that we need to all take a step back? And we can disagree about politics, but is this pretty scary to you, where we're seeing more and more violence and threats?
Absolutely. And as the president said yesterday, political violence has no place in our country, and it's certainly something that we won't tolerate, we won't stand for, and we're going to continue to condemn it. We're going to continue to provide every resource possible that the federal government has to not only prevent and stop these types of incidents, but also get to the bottom of who is truly responsible for this. And that is the person who sent these suspicious packages, and we're going to continue to do all that we can to help support law enforcement, the Secret Service, the FBI, to make sure we find out and determine who exactly that was.
Sarah, what is Homeland Security doing right now? You know, the FBI is taking the lead. Local police forces are fanning out, whether it's Delaware, Maryland, New York, or Los Angeles, or Florida, wherever city Debbie Wasserman Schultz is in. So I'm just wondering, what is Homeland Security's role?
They're doing everything they can. They're working with state and local law enforcement, with FBI, with the United States Secret Service, every level of law enforcement that has a role to play. We are working with them and coordinating and making sure they have the resources needed to get to the bottom of this.
Sarah, last night at the Wisconsin rally, the president called for a more civil tone. He said the nation must stop treating political opponents as being morally defective. Is the president going forward going to change his approach to these rallies and criticizing his opponents?
I think you saw that last night. Certainly the president is going to continue to point out contrasts of policy between Democrats and Republicans. People absolutely have a choice to make on what they believe in, and it couldn't be clearer. And we're going to see that happen in the next couple of weeks when the elections take place. And the president's going to continue to lay out that case. But at the same time, we're condemning violence and calling on all Americans to come together.
Hey, you know what's interesting, Sarah, is that I think we get it more than most because we knew the president before he was president. As you see him go head-to-head with Marco Rubio, and it got personal. He goes head-to-head with Ted Cruz, and it got personal. He goes head-to-head with Rand Paul, and it was personal. He has healed those friendships, and now everybody's working together. Do you think the president could go further to further define that he just is competing on issues, not with people, and that it is not personal, and maybe he could go that extra mile and further define that?
Look, the president did exactly that last night. Scott Walker was also somebody that the president campaigned against at one point, and he was out as his biggest champion last night, laying out the case and the difference between Democrats and Republicans. There is a major political, philosophical difference between Democrats and Republicans, and there's nothing wrong with pointing those differences out. There is something wrong with taking that to a point of violence that we are looking at that's taken place over the last 24 hours. The president has condemned that. All of us have, but certainly perfectly acceptable. And frankly, the president's responsibility to lay out the political differences between Democrats and Republicans as we head into a midterm election. The president has had a historic first 2 years in office. He's got a great story to tell, and he should be able to express that and talk about it and lay out those contrasts.
I know that some packages have been sent in the past to Republicans as well. All of these in the last day or so, or last 2 days, have been Democratic, liberal political figures. But you're in the spotlight. You work for this administration. There are crazy people out there. Has this changed the way you're living your life?
Things changed the way I was living my life over the last several months. Let's not forget that an MSNBC anchor actually said someone should wring my neck, and a Washington Post columnist said I deserved a lifetime of harassment. I was the first White House press secretary in the history of the White House to have United States Secret Service, and they don't do that because somebody said nasty things. They do that because there are credible threats. Absolutely, I think I understand this and the threats that people are experiencing over the last 24 hours. I think it's despicable. I think it's horrible. And I think that's why the president is exactly right that we have to continue to condemn this violence, continue to call it out and call it exactly what it is.
Sure. And the president's called for a more civil tone. But, Sarah, there are some on the political left who are already saying, hey, look, all this stuff with these bombs being mailed around, that's the president's fault.
I think it is absolutely disgraceful that one of the first public statements we heard from CNN yesterday was to put the blame and the responsibility of this despicable act on the president and on me personally, when the person that is responsible for this is the person who made and created and put these suspicious packages in the hands and in the arms of innocent American citizens. That's the person responsible, and I find that disgraceful that that was one of the first statements, is that they made this and tried to put the blame on the president.
Right. And you answered Jeff Zucker right on Twitter right away, and he has not responded. We see publicly, but we did see the New York Times today, and they do have a fantasy scenario from fiction writers talking about one scenario where the president gets assassinated, where the Secret Service collaborates with Russians to kill him. What's your reaction to that?
I find it to just be absolutely abhorrent and disgraceful, and it's exactly the type of thing the president was talking about. Is that type of activity is certainly not helpful, certainly not in this time.
I'm shocked they ran it today.
I find it incredibly shocking that they would run that today.
Will the president be making any remarks about what we've already seen develop? You know, the scrambling to find out what's going on in Delaware. We assume something to do with Joe Biden's address. And this morning we wake up and find out that Robert De Niro's restaurant had a package in it which was brought to the Bronx Detonation Center. So we assume it had bomb-making materials inside. Do you know, I know you had a schedule set up. Do you want to announce anything that might be changing?
I can tell you that the president has been briefed on both of these latest incidents by Chief of Staff Kelly and probably receive further briefing later this morning. Yesterday, he was briefed by the United States Secret Service, the FBI, the Department of Justice, and DHS heads that we're continuing to monitor this, look for ways to prevent it, and frankly find out at the end of the day who is fully responsible for this and make sure that we bring justice to that individual or individuals.
There's a tweet from John Brennan, response to the president. He's one of the ones that was supposed to get one of these packages. This is the one they sent to CNN. He just tweeted this. He said, "Stop blaming others. Look in the mirror. Your inflammatory rhetoric, insults, lies, and encouragement of physical violence are disgraceful. Clean up your act. Try to act presidential. The American people deserve much better. By the way, your critics will not be intimidated into silence." What's your reaction?
Look, the president, I think, could not have been more presidential yesterday when he spoke directly to the American people. He condemned this violence. Let's not get lost in who is responsible for this heinous act. It is the person who made and sent these suspicious packages. Let's not forget that that is ultimately the person that is responsible and will be held responsible by this administration.
You had no reaction directly to John Brennan, who seems to be breaking with tradition as a former head of the CIA and becoming what seems to be a pundit?
I think we've made our opinions on former Director Brennan pretty clear over the past several months. Certainly don't support the type of activity that he is engaged in and don't think it's becoming of somebody that is a former director of the intelligence agency that he was.
Side note, of course, the midterm elections are just a little less than 2 weeks away. I know the president and his team have announced that apparently he's going to make some other stops. Given what's going on with these packages, will he continue on this very aggressive campaigning with the rallies and whatnot, or are they going to pare things back, or what's going on?
Certainly, as of right now, the president continues to lay out the case and the political differences of Democrats and Republicans, as he certainly should. The future and history of our country is at stake, and Americans have a decision to make in the next couple of weeks, and the president's going to lay out the case for why Republicans have been successful over the last 2 years under his leadership. We have a booming economy. We have a massive amount of job creation, particularly in manufacturing. We have trade deals that everyone said couldn't be done. We have a national security issue at the border, and we have to decide whether or not we want law and order at the border or whether or not we want open borders. The president's going to lay out that case, and Americans are going to make a decision, and I think they're going to make the right one.
News on those mail bombs causing a scare across the country. Let's welcome in Louisiana Senator John Kennedy here to our New York studios. Great to have you here.
Nice
we
to
always
be
have
here,
you on
Senator.
that remote camera, and it's good to have you right in front of us, Senator. But what a couple days this has been. I shouldn't even say a couple days. 24 hours ago, this all began. What have been your thoughts as we now learn, according to the AP, that they are confirming that this is another one of these suspicious packages? It was mailed to Joe Biden. It was discovered at this Delaware postal facility. But another one, Senator.
Well, I think, Senator, the responsible thing to say for leadership is, you know, it's how I feel. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened to the Clintons and the Obamas and Mr. Soros and CNN and now apparently Vice President Biden. I'm sorry for America. We shouldn't have to go through this. The FBI is the premier law enforcement agency in all of human history. They'll catch this person. Maybe someone who's mentally ill, maybe somebody who's not mentally ill, but is just a whack job. I don't know. It's too early to assess blame. I know there's been our political rhetoric in this country has been hot on both sides. Has that contributed to it? I don't think it's helped. Probably we all ought to dial it down a notch You know, when you're civil doesn't mean you agree with your colleagues. It means you respect them. And I'm just sorry this happened. There's not much else you can say, but I do know we'll catch this person.
What do you think of former CIA Director John Brennan, for example, placing blame on the president? Well,
I listened to Mr. Brennan's interview. If you're going to place blame on the political climate in this country, in my judgment, there's enough blame to go around. Does President Trump use hot political rhetoric? Yes. But so does, I remember, a month ago, Secretary Clinton, which is her right, said we shouldn't be civil to the Republican Party. I can remember a famous comedian going on television holding the fake severed head of President Trump. I've heard some of my colleagues on Capitol Hill say when you see a Republican in a restaurant, harass him or her.
And all of this happening after Mitch McConnell and his wife were...
But I don't want to... I mean, I don't believe in this tit for tat. The rhetoric in our country is hot. All sides are responsible for it. Even under the best of circumstances, we ought to bring it down.
And we still don't know the motive of the person.
We don't know the motive. I mean, it may well be some total whack job. It could be somebody who is, though, just angry at the opponents of the president. That's not right.
Because we are just getting this in here, I do want to get to this quick clip of Jeff Sessions. He spoke just a few moments ago at the National Opioid Summit at the DOJ, and he made some comments on the news. Listen.
Across the administration, we condemn the actions that led to these activities in the strongest possible terms, and are determined to make sure that we get to the bottom of it and justice is done.
I want to get your quick response to that.
We'll find this person. FBI, best law enforcement agency in all of human history. We'll find this person. Until then, it's all speculation.
Senator Kennedy from the great state of Louisiana.
This is what we know so far. A package was delivered at 5 a.m. to Tribeca Film Productions. It was addressed to Robert De Niro. It was found in the mailroom of Tribeca Film Productions by security personnel. They noticed that this package looked exactly like the one that has been on TV. The same characteristics that we've been talking about now for the last day as to what all these packages look like. The heavy manila envelope, the block lettering, the postage stamps. And what happened was the NYPD then responded to here in Tribeca Film Productions. They x-rayed that package and they determined that they needed to move it in the containment vehicle. We saw that containment vehicle yesterday at Time Warner Building at CNN, moving that package over to Rodman's Neck. And this is a facility where they move all these explosive devices here in New York. They've been doing that for years, and they examine the particular explosive device at that facility. That is what we know so far. It was clearly, again, this worker, security personnel noticed that it looked exactly like the ones that we have been showing on TV. Also to note, obviously, this package had been sitting in that mailroom for at least a day. You know, mail was not delivered early this morning at 5 a.m. So obviously that package has been sitting in that mailroom for some time. How much time, we do not know.
Bug appetit.
Bug appetit. It's the latest trend in eating healthy, though it may not be for the faint of heart. But is eating bugs as gross as it sounds?
This is actually a little scary.
People have been eating bugs forever, and the Western world kind of stigmatized it and made us not want to eat it. But the fact that 80% of the world's nations eats bugs, I mean, we are in the minority.
The Smithsonian Channel even has a streaming series on Smithsonian Earth called Bug Bites, dedicated to trying the daring delicacies.
This is really good.
You can probably see why I love scorpions so much.
So for those not so adventurous eaters, we tried a few gourmet meals made by Brooklyn chef Joseph Yoon, so you don't have to. Ants paired with shrimp have a citrus note.
That's why I like to pair it with cocktail shrimp.
Oh, I definitely felt the legs.
Cricket gougères, or cheese puffs made with cricket powder.
Okay, and this one's covered, so it's not as intimidating.
Yeah, you don't even see it, yeah.
Crab cake bites with torched Manchurian scorpion.
Well,
cheers, and possibly goodbye.
I'm really proud of you.
5, 6, 7, 8.
And then this.
The tarantula, on the other hand, it's kind of in your face. You know, I did take the abdomen off, which has like just all the guts and stuff, and I also took like the little fangs off as well.
Okay, my heart is actually racing here. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Wow!
There are more than 1,900 edible insects out there. Chef Joseph started cooking with them when an artist friend wanted to conquer her fear of bugs by eating them.
Once I started learning about the sustainability of it and the UN's endorsement of it, I really just literally fell into the wormhole.
Even so, insects aren't part of his daily diet.
For me, I mean, I eat it on a semi-regular basis, but it's definitely not every day. And I have to train my palate to like make things that I crave that will make me really want to eat it.
Bugs are sustainable, and because they're high in protein, nutritious.
The UN issued address the issue of food scarcity and how are we going to feed the world's population in 2050? And their answer was edible insects.
And it turns out eating them is actually good for the environment.
Even if 10% of Americans ate insects once a week, like Meatless Monday, even that would have a tremendous impact on the sustainability and like for our environment.
But before you just go and pick up a bug off the street, don't.
All this is like has been grown, farmed, and harvested for human consumption, except for the tarantula, actually.
And for dessert lovers, there's even something for you.
It's gonna be ooey, it's gonna be gooey,
chocolatey. That's the chocolate part,
That's
right?
the chocolate,
Okay.
yeah.
Silkworm pupa chocolate brownies.
It tastes kind of healthy. It's like a
Maybe
brownie.
it's silkworm pupa, yeah.
Chef Joseph says tons of science and research goes into each and every prepared bite. And he predicts in the coming years, eating insects will be normal.
And it might be off-putting to think that you're going to save the world by eating bugs, but it's fun, and the fact that it is good for the world, I mean, that's kind of like a double win-win.
I disgust myself. Every day, I'll have no pride looking in the mirror. I disgust myself. And you know what? It's funny, I love it.
New audio of slain rapper XXXTentacion reveals a troubled young man. Authorities in Florida released the recording in which he may have confessed to assaulting his ex-girlfriend.
I put my source of happiness in another person, which was a mistake initially, right? But she fell through on every occasion until now. Until I started her up, bro.
X, whose real name was Jahseh Onfroy, was gunned down in his car while leaving a Florida motorcycle dealership in June. He was 20 years old, but his short life was plagued with controversy. At the time of his death, he was facing charges for allegedly abusing a girlfriend in 2016, while she was reportedly pregnant with his child. In this recording released by the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, X seems to confess to harming the woman.
I started her up because she made one mistake, and then from there, the whole cycle went down. Now she's scared. That girl is scared for her life, which I understand.
The then 18-year-old also discussed wanting to take his own life and his violent tendencies, claiming to have stabbed 8 people.
I'm on New Times for stabbing. How many people they put in the news? They said 3. It was 8. In Deerfield. She know that. She seen no tears on my face, no remorse. I just knew I was going to jail. She know. So she's scared. She thinks I'm gonna kill her.
But the 27-minute recording also reveals a man in pain who may have been a victim of violence himself.
You can go get raped, and I can tell you suck it up. But every night you go to sleep and you remember what you've seen, and you remember how it felt, you remember that horrible feeling in your soul. Nobody can comfort you. It's something I gotta deal with.
The state attorney's office says the recording likely wouldn't have been admissible at his trial because it was recorded without the knowledge of the other parties. The criminal cases against XXXTentacion were closed after his death. 4 men have been arrested in connection with his killing. They have pleaded not guilty to murder charges. Did these paranormal investigators really catch a ghost in these photos?
Hi, we're the Cambridge Ghost Hunters, and today's the world's largest ghost hunting day.
It's what looks like the standard open for a ghost hunting video. But wait.
There'll be 150 teams all over the world investigating different locations, so keep watching for more footage.
Craig Jones and Matt Wood claim they had a supernatural encounter. They say they were investigating a haunted location when they asked if any spirits wanted to take a picture with them. These blurs are what appeared in the images taken at Revesby Abbey, a medieval monastery. And a personal trainer said he was attacked by an angry cave ghost, seen in this video. Tony Ferguson was checking out a cave in South Wales when this happened. Tony claims a ghostly mist came at him and passed through his body, leaving him feeling winded enough to almost pass out. He says later he saw a manifestation of the spirit lurking in the cave. He's using the video to warn the public just how dangerous ghost hunting can be. And whether you believe in them or not, it certainly is spooky.